taking on the atheists. Uh-oh guys, it looks like for the first time ever, a theist is going to actually say something about us here Atheblabs. That's never happened before. All that time, we were just left alone to do big atheism all over ourselves. But it's gone now, and the piper shall be paid. Probably in silly points and stupid bucks because it's Wild Bill, and I don't think words have ever left his mouth that aren't astonishingly idiotic.
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here. Won't be any squirrels in this video.
Okay, is that important for your audience? Oh right, of course it is. I mean, how are they expected to pay any attention whatsoever without cute animals on screen? Like it's a cartoon for children, or one of those wildlife videos designed for fucking cats. Hey, he said it, not me.
But there's usually dolphins out there somewhere, so watch close.
As someone who's a bit of an amateur video butthole, I love the fact that he has no idea that he's completely blown out the lighting of the background. So I'm pretty sure even if there were dolphins, your chance of seeing them is basically nil. Again, not that it should matter. Aren't you here to take on us atheists? Not a sightseeing tour of the local dolphin riding squirrels or whatever.
You know, people say you're not supposed to pick on the handicapped, but when it comes to the loudmouth atheists...
Wow, that's like seriously uncool. And not in a this grown man pretends to be a fucking cowboy type of not cool, as in the what a fucking dickhead kind of anti-cool. Atheists are handicapped, are they? I assume you mean in a mental illness kind of way, and frankly, fuck you buddy, because A, that's completely inaccurate to say, and B, even if it were true, having a handicap doesn't make someone stupid or wrong about, well, anything potentially, depending on their interest. And look, I get it. This is just a joke, brah, but it's also just a fucking stupid thing to say and makes you sound like an ignorant jackass. And frankly, you didn't need to do that. We already have all your opinions and beliefs to tell us that shit, so frankly, you're just being redundant.
I just can't help myself.
Can't help yourself? I thought being a big godder was all about self-control and not doing things that are terrible for you. I mean, making fun of atheists is just awful for you because you demonstrate every single time what a bumbling buffoon you are, and probably embarrass no less than 7 theists out of their religiosity due to the sheer amount of cringing they do and need to get away from you before it kills them.
Besides, picking on them is cheaper than paying to go to the zoo to watch monkeys.
I'm sure you've said that before, and it still makes no sense. I mean, what you should be doing is climbing in the cage and convincing them of God Almighty, and how if they throw their poop at you, Jesus will come down and smite them all to hell. And after they savagely beat the shit out of you, which they will then of course throw at you as well, you can rest assured that you came out on top in that altercation, and they are only did it because of how right you always am. And then you should go see the monkeys.
Well, here's one way you can have fun with atheists.
Talk about anything but the frickin' Bible. Leave religion and politics and any other incendiary topics at the door and act like a fucking human being for once in your life. And if you must do your little incantation to make your food magic, don't get pissy when they choose not to join in, or even if they roll their eyes, because frankly it's not about you and they have the right to believe as they believe. I know, how dare they, but frankly, get over it, mate.
Allow them to recite their memorized spiel about how there's...
Okay, before he gets to his memorized spiel about how we totally have a memorized spiel, what's the betting what he says we all say TM is actually not that, but also not even something that many, possibly any atheists say, whether because it's just not true or because the things he has heard he hasn't been able to comprehend in anything other than his simplistic black and white thinking. Because everyone knows people who can't understand nuance are the biggest, brainiest, smartest of all the times.
Absolutely no evidence for God.
Okay, it really depends on who you're talking to and what they actually mean. Because one is anyone who knows what evidence is and what it means wouldn't say that. Because evidence is just a thing that you can take and say, hey, that goes towards this conclusion. Like the whole, look how X and pretty is technically evidence for God. Now, a lot of people don't have that understanding of evidence, but that doesn't make them wrong strictly speaking. Because what they tend to mean is there isn't any good evidence for God. Because, back to it and pretty, there are other more rational, naturalistic explanations as to why humans might find things aesthetically pleasing that don't require goddamn do it. And goddamn do it also doesn't account for all the ugly things, etc. And most evidences for God sit in that kind of category. Ultimately, if you were to nail me to the floor and force me to answer before you gave me my precious life-sustaining whiskey bag, I would say there's no evidence for God that isn't better explained by other means.
And then ask them about life on other planets.
Why? What has that got to do with evidence for God? And I thought it was their memorized spiel, and yet you're already throwing in random questions that have nothing to do with the price of fish. I mean, I'm sure you think it's like a smart gotcha, but here's a tip. If you ever, and I mean ever, think you've come up with either an original question that atheismos have never heard before, or something that's going to trick them into realizing you are the captain now, you haven't, and you almost certainly didn't. If they have more than a few seconds to think about it, because sure, you ask some asshole on the street one of those questions that takes a moment, and they don't answer immediately, you can then declare victory and escape into the clouds. But that's actually not how that works. And I've yet to hear one that I haven't been able to pick some pretty massive holes in after just thinking for a moment. And bear in mind, I'm a fucking idiot. Imagine the actual smart guys doing this shit.
I have yet to meet one of these atheists who isn't absolutely convinced that there are alien civilizations out there somewhere.
Seriously, how many have you even met? Is it like 2? Because I have yet to meet any atheist that is convinced of anything even remotely close to that. Although in all likelihood, as I said, this is probably Bill being far too smart to actually listen to words that were said and just comes to some tangential conclusion that strays so far from the answer, you aren't sure he was even in the building when the words were being said. The most I have heard from anyone on such a point is that the possibility of alien life, and that's sans civilization, in such a large universe is fairly high. But until we see it for ourselves, it is entirely hypothetical and not something that anyone believes as an absolute fact. I would love to be introduced to these so-called atheists all these guys seem to meet, and at a guess, they'll either be, fake, or someone like most people who haven't given any of this much thought. At which point, why the fuck are you talking to them to represent anyone, let alone everyone? Oh right, because of the lies.
They have genuine faith that out there somewhere are Vulcans and Klingons and whatever, and someday we're going to meet up with them.
Yeah, of course, it's atheists who believe in literal fictional characters, obviously, and faith, apart from, again, no one is certain like you are certain of God Boy and Zombie Jesus. But even if they were, it still wouldn't be faith to be certain that life exists in the universe, because it fucking does. You are shockingly an example of it. So there is proof that life can form on planets, therefore the likelihood of it happening again is pretty high. High enough for some people to be perfectly comfortable with saying, we will find it. Unlike you being sure God did a universe when we have never seen any gods do any other universes for some reason. I think it's because they're shy. I mean, I would be too if I didn't exist.
And we're all going to play with our spaceships.
Cowboy man, you cannot make fun of other people for things that you made up about them for starts, while simultaneously being a fake cowboy. It's not only extremely embarrassing, but it's also, not true. I mean, even those who were 100% believing in alien civs and are sure mankind will meet them someday are under no illusions that it will happen within their lifetime or even within the existence of humans alone before they do themselves a dead. It's just wrong on every possible level of interpretation. It's like you are trying not to understand the things other people say, and that's exactly what it is, isn't it?
But be careful when playing this game, because if you point out to them that there really is no evidence for the existence of such civilizations,
you'll be doing basically a similar thing to the atheists who say there's no evidence for God is doing and exist. That is to say, not really understanding what evidence is. I mean, here's the main definition: the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or position is true or valid. That doesn't mean that it is true or valid. Otherwise, there wouldn't be evidence in a legal case that could point to multiple possibilities, like how a description could plausibly be a few different people, or that more than one person can have a motive, and so on and so forth. Basically, not all evidence is created equal, but the preponderance of evidence towards a certain conclusion can lead people to be fairly certain of a particular outcome, at least in their own minds. That doesn't make them right or wrong, but it can determine the likelihood. And frankly, the likelihood of aliens far outstrips the likelihood of the biblical God by so much that it might as well be a fucking fact in comparison.
They will sometimes attack with religious zeal.
Translation, they will probably point out how you're being extremely stupid and you got them so far off topic that it would seem as though you don't actually have a response for their initial claim and are instead trying to change the topic of conversation entirely just so you don't have to.
You see, in the world of atheism, also known as spiritual retardation...
Oh wow, that's just offensive. It's not even accurate to the use of the word. Atheists, can be entirely spiritual. The existence of spirit life and the existence of God are not mutually inclusive. You can believe in the former without the latter. And even those who aren't spiritual, well, they aren't slow to progress in their spirituality, so they just aren't, because spirituality is fucking stupid and only morons believe in ghosts. Don't at me. Now, that's all assuming you were using this specific definition of retardation and not being a massive piece of shit.
It is absolutely impossible for God to exist in spite of thousands of years of eyewitness testimony.
Oh hey, it's that bad evidence I was talking about. I mean seriously, first off, thousands of years of eyewitness testimony. We don't measure eyewitnesses in years, we measure them in numbers of people. Thousands of years could be something like 1 or 2 people a millennia, or one person that has been witnessing it for a really goddamn long time somehow. Maybe it's done in shifts. And if they are witnessing the same exact thing,
that still only counts as one.
But even if we take it to mean a large number of people over a long time period, well, so what? Eyewitness testimony is notoriously bad. Not only are people really not that great at remembering things accurately, and they often fail to understand the things that they are looking at, but also, given time between the witnessing and the testimony, entire threads of memory can change. Things like the location it was witnessed, the people who were there, the time, the day, and even the colours of certain known things will be incorrectly recalled. So yeah, not exactly what I would call compelling, my dude.
Archaeological, historical, and literary evidence.
Well, the archaeological evidence has yet to prove anything of the sort. The historical, same song. And literary? What, you mean like fucking stories? You know that they aren't evidence of anything, my dude. Well, aside from that someone wrote a story. Of all the things you wanted to show as Big Prof to God. About the level I expected, because seriously, folks, you must know by now this man is not smart.
And even though there is no such evidence for extraterrestrials...
Excuse me, there is loads of evidence for my extra testicles, mostly in my pants. Oh wait, I think he meant ETs. And yeah, there's not historical evidence or archaeological evidence. Well, some people think there is, but don't mind them. But there's loads of literary quote-unquote evidence. People write stories about aliens all the time. In fact, probably more than even the Bible. So on that front, it's got you shot to pieces. And I mean, it's still not good evidence, but I'm just going by his shitty standards.
Atheists say that it is impossible that we are alone in the universe.
That is not the same claim as there is definitely giant civilizations that are going to come down and play jump rope with us. Whether or not you accept the claim, I would think even you would admit that it's far more reasonable than the other. You know, if you hadn't poisoned the well with shit no one said first, and then made what is a far more likely claim someone might actually have made. Although, again, it's probably not impossible, but extremely unlikely. But why let the truth get in the way of a good yarn to help you pwn the atheists real good?
Ah, yes, atheists, proudly marching themselves into hell while telling us how intelligent they are.
I already told you I was an idiot, and I'm sorry, bro, but you can't just tell me that you know hell am real and then throw a book at my head as proof. That's not how this shit works. All hell is a threat to try and trick people who otherwise don't really care about believing in your thing. and following your commands, but it generally doesn't work for anyone who has thought about it for more than a femtosecond, because it's ludicrous nonsense that only a child should believe could possibly be true. And throw in that you likely think your God is all good, and it makes the idea even more ridiculous.
Spiritual retardation. But fortunately, spiritual retardation is curable. Occasionally, God Almighty reaches down and rips the blinders off of one of these atheists and totally changes their life.
I'm going to ignore your pathetic attempts at pointless and frankly ignorant ad hom and just say that I would love to meet one of these people and really go into what exactly they thought before Myster-M believed God now though. I would imagine that it's not something unlike they had actually spent no time seriously considering and instead had it as a way that they could say, me am more smart than this group. Then, upon some pretty lame convincing, found a different way they could be smarter than other people. And I'm sure they may one day switch back or switch to another religion entirely, where they will again know that they are definitely right this time. Until shown otherwise, these people are not to be taken seriously by fucking anyone, even when they quote unquote agree with you. And especially not if they agree with you, Bill. You're a fucking moron.
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel, Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the